When I was 18, my father died of a brain tumour, inoperable, size of a man's fist, they said. And I tried to pray. I really did, but I couldn't see the point. If God already knew how much pain we were in, what difference would it make? What good would my prayers do? The question, why pray if God already knows? It broke something in my relationship with God that took years to understand. You might be thinking, if God already knows what I need, why am I sitting here like an idiot asking for it? And I tell you what, back then I wouldn't have known what to say, because it doesn't sound like you're wrong, right? Look, if you've ever felt like prayer is just talking to yourself in the dark, or wondered why your granny's prayers seem to work better than yours, this is for you. I'm not here to give you Sunday school answers or pat you on the head and tell you, have more faith. I've been where you are, staring up at the ceiling wondering, what's the point of it all? And I think I found something that actually makes sense. But here's where it gets messy. I don't know what your father was like, but mine was the best of them. We had one of those families, the perfect family, you know? And when he got that diagnosis, 6 months to live, it broke my heart entirely. The thing was, I kept thinking, God already knows how sad I am. He knows my father's in pain, knows he's dying, knows we're all falling apart. So what's the point in asking? It wasn't really, does prayer work? It was, what's the point if God already sees all this suffering and isn't stopping it? That broke that something in my relationship with God. And if I'm being honest with you, praying is still difficult for me, even now. So if you've been there, if you've sat at a hospital bed or stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m, wondering why you're bothering to ask for something God already knows you need, you're not broken. You're not faithless. You're not alone. You're human. Here's the first thing that shifted everything for me. What if prayer isn't about changing God's mind, just about joining God's work? It's like, you know, when you're helping your father fix something around the house, and he could obviously do it on his own, but he hands you the tools anyway. You hold the torch, right? Not because he needs you, but because working together changes the whole experience. You're not just watching, you're part of it. Maybe that's a part of what prayer is. God's not a vending machine, insert prayer, receive miracle. He's more like a co-worker. And sometimes the miracle isn't the outcome you wanted. It's that you get to be a part of the story. Now, did that bring my father back? Of course it didn't. But it meant I wasn't just sitting there helpless, you know? I was doing something. I was connected to something bigger than my own grief. Right, now the second one used to drive me mad. People would say, prayer changes you, not God. And I'd think, brilliant. So it's just therapy with a religious twist then. But here's what happened. Years later, I was going through another rough patch, and I found myself praying again. Not because I thought it would fix anything, but because I was desperate. And I noticed something. When I prayed for people I was worried about, something shifted, not in them, but in me. I'd still be worried, but now I could actually ring them up or call around instead of lying awake thinking about them. Prayer didn't take away the worry, but it gave me something to do with it. Turns out, prayer actually rewires your brain. It's like meditation, but with more talking to God. Lowers your stress, helps you process emotions, makes you more likely to actually help instead of just worrying from a distance. Now, did prayer bring my father back? No. Did it make grief easier? Not really, but it did help me carry the grief without destroying me entirely. Right, this third one's going to sound mental, but stay with me. What if God exists outside time? Like your prayer tomorrow is happening right now in His perspective. I know. Sounds like something you hear after a few pints. But think about it. If God's outside time, then maybe unanswered prayer is just a prayer that makes sense from outside of my timeline. Maybe the answer is coming, just not when I expect it. Look, I don't fully get it either, but it beats thinking that God's just ignoring me, doesn't it? I still don't have all the answers. I still don't know why my father had to suffer like that, or why some prayers are answered and others aren't. But here's what I've learned. Prayer changed me, even when it didn't change my circumstances. Made me less likely to fall apart in despair, more aware of the people around me who needed help, better at actually showing up instead of just worrying from a distance. I pray now because Jesus did, and he knew what suffering was about. I pray to stay connected to something bigger than my own grief. I pray because sometimes it's the only thing I can do, even if it's just, God, I don't understand this. I've stopped expecting prayer to work like a shop. Put in the request, get the result. Now it's more like having a pint with someone who's been through hell and back. You don't always get answers, but you don't feel so alone. And yeah, some days I still can't pray at all. Some days the words just won't come. And you know what? I think that's okay too. Maybe silence is its own kind of prayer. The point isn't to have perfect faith or always feel God's presence. The point is to keep showing up, even and especially when you don't understand. So here's what I want to know. Have you ever been in that place where prayer feels impossible? Where you wanted to talk to God, but couldn't find the words or couldn't see the point? Drop it in the comments, because I guarantee you're not alone in this. If any of this resonated, if you wrestled with these questions and prayers and faith and why good people suffer, give it a like. It helps me know that there are others out there who think too much about these things. And if you want more honest conversations about faith, this messy, complicated, beautiful kind of faith that doesn't require you to pretend everything's grand when it's not, hit the subscribe button. Look, if you want to support more real talk about faith, I've got a Patreon. Links in the description. No pressure, but every bit helps me keep having these conversations instead of pretending I've got it all figured out. Because God knows, I don't. Remember, your questions don't disqualify you from faith. Your doubts don't make you less than. And if you're struggling to pray today, well, maybe that struggle is more honest than any perfect prayer you could say. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is admit that you don't understand. And that's enough. That's more than enough. My name's Jacob, and this might be church.